André Lewis has spent the majority of his dancing career with Canada's first ballet company, the Royal Winnipeg, which began in 1939 and was granted its royal title by the Queen in 1953. Lewis has danced in productions such as The Ecstasy of Rita Joe and Romeo and Juliet. His influences are many and his passion strong for dance and all it entails. It is my pleasure to welcome André Lewis to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Well, yes, indeed. It's a pleasure being here first.
And a pleasure to meet you. Do you miss dancing?
You know what?
I know you dance about, but actually dancing in big productions.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, as a dancer, I loved it. As a dancer, you worry about yourself. A director, you worry about everybody but yourself. So it's a different perspective, and it's one that I have embraced when I started in '95.
And when you were a young man, when did you know ballet was your thing?
Well, actually, it all started because my sister was doing a production of Nutcracker with a local school in Ottawa. And her teacher asked for volunteers, so my mother decided to send 3 of us to be part of Nutcracker, and then they offered a scholarship essentially to all 3 of us. I stuck with it. I stayed with it, where my 2 other brothers just did not.
Right. What do they do?
Well, one teach physics at the University of Montreal. The other one is an urbanist at the University of Montreal, also in postgraduate studies.
So no dancers in your family, really?
No, not really. One uncle was a principal dancer in Sweden, and that was perhaps a bit of a consideration when my mother pushed us towards that.
And your first ballet, that when you got the job, what was it?
Was it called Pulcinella Variation, a work that the company had in its repertoire, and it was the first thing I did, although I had performed Nutcracker with the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, but as a student, not as a company member.
And is there one ballet that strikes you in the heart?
Well, certainly when I first performed Romeo and Juliet, I was given the role of Mercutio, and on my off night I was given the role of Romeo, meaning that I had to do both roles on various nights. And that work is very close to my heart.
I'm sure. And who was Juliet?
Her name was Teresa Bacall, a wonderful lady, principal dancer. I was just a young corps de ballet member, but the choreographer had come to Winnipeg to set the work, Rudy van Danzig, and he felt I was perfect for the position or for the part of Mercutio and also Romeo. So it was an amazing time. It was early in my career, so it certainly propelled me forward.
And have you danced with another on stage where there wasn't magic, where you thought, you're a fabulous dancer, I'm a fabulous dancer, but we're not, you know, together. It's like pair skaters.
Yeah. You know what? Usually, of course, you have to act professionally. You have to work with people. So you find ways to overcome sometimes some of those barriers. But I can't say I've ever had a problem with, oh, you know, I cannot work with this person.
Right. Or you could be fired.
Well, that technically, that is an incentive.
You could be gone.
Yes.
Svengali, a modern version of Svengali, and a Svengali really is a star maker of sorts. Yes. A Simon Cowell.
Well, he is this person that can control women. In this case, in the Du Maurier novel, it's a singer that Svengali controls.
That's right, and Trilby. Trilby was the novel, wasn't it?
In the novel, it's Trilby, yes.
That's right, and there was a little anti-Semitism. He was a Jewish hypnotist of sorts, or a Svengali, and the girl couldn't sing a lick. And he turned her into an opera diva with his spell and his magic.
Exactly, essentially. Although in our case, because the Du Maurier novel is an inspiration, we don't try to follow the story.
No,
there's no ballet ever does that. But we made her into a dancer, and then she becomes a famous dancer.
Oh, and the Svengali, where does he begin?
Well, actually, it's set in pre-war Germany. And his mother, Svengali's mother, has a ballet studio.
I see.
And that's the inspiration for him to connect with Trilby and make her into a ballet star.
I see, and she's not so good, or what is Trilby doing when he finds her?
Well, Trilby is a bit of a street bum, if you will,
okay.
but brings her to prominence that way. But it's also, because it's a classical ballet, it's, I mean, it's on point. It's made for ballet dancers.
Right.
So it was very clever the way Mark incorporated. First of all, the ballet studio scene in there is absolutely stunning. The choice of music is beautiful, but it's putting it all together that makes it strong.
Sure, so
ballet.
the audience is under the spell of it all, because as you know, good
Yes.
ballet,
Yes.
you're lost in it, and it inspires
Yes,
you, and you're under the
absolutely.
spell. So choreographer Mark Godden?
Yes, Mark Godden.
Mark Godden, he takes her from, transforms, well, Svengali transforms her
Yes,
from a
yeah.
street girl
Yeah.
into the darling of the ballet world.
Yes, essentially. Yeah, exactly.
And then what happens when the darling of the ballet world is more powerful than Svengali?
Well, what
Or does that happen?
That it doesn't happen so much in this way. Is they push the envelope so much, and it creates a kerfuffle, if you will, in the story that Mark has put together, the libretto, if you will, and then everything falls apart at one
Right.
point. And it's a morality play at the same time. At the time of Germany, you know, where there was a sense of if you belong to a certain type of people, you were this kind of, you were accepted, and or if you were not. So all of those play into the ballet.
Okay, and tell me about the team. There's you, artistic director. Your mandate is?
Whatever you see on stage is ultimately I'm accountable for. Not necessarily responsible, meaning by I don't necessarily make the work.
Right.
Like you will see in Svengali, it's Mark Godden, but
Right.
I'm the one who makes sure that what you see on stage gets to be put together.
So even if the curtain doesn't open, that's your problem?
It's certainly, somebody will be pointing the finger at me, and rightly so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you coordinate. Do you hire or do you just coordinate? As
No,
as AD?
I hire all of the, if you call it talent, that choreograph the work, and then the choreographer himself will bring about a creative team, like the designer for costume, for sets, for lighting, for all of those things. Usually the choreographer tends to choose his own music, or will work with the musicians to put all of that together.
Okay. And touring. Touring today.
Touring, yes, that is a bit of a challenge nowadays, you know, because of course costs have escalated, support has not
Yes.
necessarily kept pace.
You heard tell.
Yeah.
Yes, we need more money for arts and culture.
We do need
sure
more. I
do.
mean, and it's a reality. I mean, ballet has always been a subsidized art form, which doesn't respond necessarily all that well to bottom line thinking.
Right.
I mean, that's just not the way it works. But the reality is we live in a democracy where money does grease the wheels. But without that support, but it's not, I mean, it shouldn't be just from the government. It needs to be from people coming to see the performance, supporting the arts, not only by saying, well, the government will do it, but by,
Right.
I look in Europe, it's really interesting. They're much more supported, but at the same time, arts is very, very prevalent in people's lives, and that's what we hope to change also.
Are you getting younger people to come to the ballet?
Well, that's certainly one of our goals, is to bring younger people. We did a production last year called Wonderland, which was based on the story of Alice in Wonderland. And it was multimedia rich. And the idea was to bring a younger audience. And I must say the response from the younger audience was extraordinarily strong. Dracula was the same, certainly the same effect.
Right.
It brought a younger audience. The challenge is not necessarily to bring a young audience, but to keep them
Keep a
once
young
you
audience.
have
So when
brought
the
them.
young get older and make money in their .com
Yeah.
world, they give you money so the ballet can continue.
Yeah.
Yes, so Dracula, was that creative genius Guy Madden?
Yes.
Was he part of that?
Well, Mark first created Dracula. Actually,
Okay.
it was presented here in the early 2000s. But later on, Guy Madden, who has associated with Mark in that,
Right.
he's a wonderful film director. And they decided to create a film version of Dracula, which was very different than the actual performance, the ballet itself.
So if you could be on stage with anyone today, who would you choose?
Oh, as far as who I
Or
would...
maybe in your day. Not that your day's over, but do you know, like the dream dance or the dream partner or
Well, you know, I was very
the
fortunate.
dream ballet?
person I danced many years with was Evelyn Hart, who was this
I
wonderful,
met
wonderful,
her.
yes.
She waltzed in I think it was a green fur coat.
I
think. Does that sound like Evelyn Hart? Mm-hmm.
Yes, a little bit. But so I was very fortunate that way. We danced all over the world together. I was her partner of choice in many of our productions, so I was very fortunate that way. So, and I danced some beautiful works. I mean, what we miss in my days perhaps is the creation of works on us, because at the time the company was acquiring some of the classical repertoire, so there was less opportunity to do works like a Dracula.
And Royal Winnipeg respected internationally, as you know so
Absolutely.
well. Our oldest ballet company, right?
That is the oldest, certainly in Canada. We started in 1939.
Right. And you were, was it called Royal Winnipeg?
No,
because the Queen made it Royal.
Yeah, it was called the Winnipeg Ballet Club until 1953. And then in 54, because the Queen had come to Winnipeg, and one of our board chair at the time, I believe, I forget her name now, I should revisit this, but asked the Queen if we could be called the Royal. And it was her first charter, actually, under her reign.
And so what does that mean? A Royal Ballet and another ballet, like for instance the Ballet of BC. It's not the Royal Ballet of BC. What does it take to be a Royal Ballet?
Well, you have to ask for that permission to ask to add. You cannot just call yourself Royal.
Hang the shingle out.
Yeah, apparently there are some conditions. There are ways to get this potentially, and you might be refused, but you cannot simply write Royal beside your name.
Okay, I know what some Canadian actors make, stage actors, and it's not that much. It's not enough for what they do. They love what they do, but they don't make enough money for what they do, in my humble opinion. A principal dancer, not necessarily your dancers, but general figures.
A
Karen Kane or somebody of her ilk, or a middle Karen Kane.
You'd have to ask Karen directly how much she makes.
I probably have.
You probably have. But you know, I would say it's between, let's say, 70 and 90,000, maybe 100,000 a year. Yeah, which is not very much when you look at the quality and the training that they receive, and you look at and I certainly don't wish to cast aspersion on any of the sports people, but there's not necessarily more training in what a hockey player, football player, or a baseball player do, but
there's a lot more money.
Well, you can tenfold it, essentially. Like $1 million is a starting salary, but the training is just as intense. The challenge and the ability to achieve the kind of quality that a principal dancer or a soloist or a corps, for that matter, is significant, and it's certainly, to me, equally on par.
You look at yourself or the Brishnikovs or the Nuryevs, and of course they're athletes. First and foremost, creative and artistic, but athletes. And a good athlete, a good hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, is also creative and artistic in his own way, don't you know? Okay, so Svengali, April 20th, 21st, 22nd, the Centre in Vancouver for Performing Arts.
Yes, indeed.
All right, you'll be there, I guess.
Yes, I will be. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you. André Lewis.